العلم أشراف مطلوب وطالبه لله أكرام من يمشي على قدمه. العلم نور مبين يستضيء به أهل السعادات والجهال في الظلم.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهديه الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. طيب we reached the 12th line I believe. الدين مبني على المصالح في جلبها ودرء للقبائح. صح؟ we've done that. طيب القاعدة, what is the first principle that the Shaykh brings in his nazm? The first principle, النية. طيب النية isn't a principle. الأمور بمقاصدها. طيب دليل القاعدة, what is the evidence for this principle? وما لا يعبد الله مخلصين له الدين إنما الأعمال بالنيات. Examples of الأمور بمقاصدها. To be praised. طيب what's the rule in that? The action isn't accepted. طيب examples, another example. Read the Quran. To be called. يقرأ عليك السلام. صح, أحسنت. طيب we mentioned conditions for the niyyah, صح? From them الإسلام, العقل, التمييز. طيب و knowledge of what it is that you're doing. طيب we mentioned there are things, or when it comes to the actions that require an intention, we mentioned that in general things are of two types. Al-ma'murat, things that you've been commanded to do. Wal-matrukat. طيب which of these needs intention? Al-ma'murat. طيب matrukat, give me an example of that which doesn't need an intention and why. Removal of najasa. Hassan. The most important thing is that the najasa is moved. الدين مبني على المصالح في جلبها ودرء للقبائح. This qaida we said that some scholars call it, or the qaida of, that the religion came to complete all of the beneficial things and all of the needs and the affairs of the humans. في جلبها ودرء للقبائح, and at the same time it removes all sorts of harms from Bani Adam. طيب evidence for this qaida. أحسنت. اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم. This verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I have completed your religion, my favor upon you, and completed your religion, and have chosen Islam for you as your religions. Now if something is complete, then it requires, or it doesn't require for anything to be added, nor does it require anything to be taken away. طيب. So this qaida is a very important qaida, to the extent that some scholars say that it is qaida to sharia. Not only a qaida fi sharia, not only a principle in the sharia, lakin qaida to sharia. Alaykum salam. طيب. Then we mention So the 12th line, 12, 13 and 14 are on the same issue. Now in general, the Sharia came with all of, commanding us with all of the things that are praiseworthy and are beneficial. Tawheed, Salah, Ibadah, Hajj and so on. And also to stay away from all of the harmful things. Inside this, there's a principle that the scholars mentioned, which we mentioned last week or a couple of weeks ago. دَرْءُ الْمَفْسَدَةِ مُقَدَّمٌ عَلَى جَلْبِ الْمَصْلَحَةِ. Can anyone give me a brief explanation of this principle? Other than Adam. Ahsant. In a situation where the benefit and the harm are equal. So this is, طبعا, when we're saying دَرْءُ الْمَفْسَدَةِ, or repelling harm, takes precedence over bringing about or obtaining benefit. This is the general rule. That's the general qa'idah. There are exemptions, and that's in a lot of principles. You will find that in a lot of principles, except for the al-kulliyat al-khams or al-Qawaa'id al-kubra, except for the 5 major principles, you will find that there are exemptions. Like in the general principle is that if there's a matter in which you find benefits and you find harm and they are equal, then that matter is to be refrained from, because removing the harm or repelling it or staying away from it takes precedence over getting any sort of benefit. Now the 2 examples, or there are examples that we mentioned طبعا, like there were 2 examples that I mentioned in the last class. The 2 examples I mentioned in the last class were an example of an exemption when this qa'idah isn't implemented. Now مثلا, for example, when we were talking about مثلا swearing at the lords or whatever it is that the idol worshippers worship. In that command, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-An'am says, وَلَا تَصُبُّ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ لِمَاذَا فَيَصُبُّ اللَّهِ. Do not swear at those or abuse those that they worship other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't abuse or talk about their gods, for fear that they will in return swear at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or defame Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or dispraise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. طيب. In there we had a benefit and a harm, or in this verse we see a benefit and a harm equal. Lakin Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to refrain from the benefit so that the harm doesn't befall upon us. So that the harm doesn't come about, stay away from the benefit. There are exemptions from them. There are ones we mentioned last week. From the Qa'id, مثلا الآن, when we're talking about the examples, that example that we just mentioned now, also when we were talking about kitab, when we're in kitab salah, there were things that prevent a person from going to the jama'ah. صح? مثلا, if a person goes in there into the masjid with garlic, smelling of garlic, onions or whatever, or any other harmful substance, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam commanded that person to stay away from the masjid and the musalla. صح? طيب. In that, there's the implementation of this qa'idah. For going to the masjid, for this individual is what? For this individual it's a benefit. Like in the fact that he has this smell with him harms who? The other believers, the other worshippers in the masjid. So whilst refraining from the harm or while removing the harm, the benefit hasn't been looked at. The benefit of him being, or the person attending the masjid. Is that example understood? طيب. Also, مثلا, قيام الليل. قيام الليل is a maslaha, صح? and praying tahajjud or qiyamul layl is a maslaha. طيب. Missing Salat al-Fajr is a mafsada. Now if a person wants to pray all night, pray qiyamul layl, and then an hour or half an hour or an hour and a half before salah they decide to sleep, leading to them missing the Fajr prayer, we can implement this qa'idah. You can say dar'ul mafsada muqaddam ala jalb al-maslaha. Dar'ul mafsada, repelling the harm of missing the Fajr prayer, takes precedence over jalb al-maslaha, or bringing about benefit of you trying to pray qiyamul layl. So for a person to pray qiyamul layl all night for 5 hours and then miss the Fajr, that person is sinning, even though they are in an act of ibadah, صح? Lakin they are missing the Fajr prayer. طيب. So that's the general principle. دور المفسدة مقدم على جلب المصلحة. There are some examples or some exemptions to that. For example, the examples that we mentioned last week. A person praying without wudu. A person praying without wudu. طبعا a person praying without wudu is a mafsada. Is a mafsada. Lakin attaining or being able to pray the salah at its time is a maslaha. So which one takes precedence? Pray on its time, because the benefit here is greater than the mafsada. Likewise, the example of the wulat al-umur, as-sam' wa ta'a. When they are being obeyed, sahih that they are being given more ability to control the land, or more, they've been given more time to practice their evil and so on. So there's a mafsada in there. Sah? There's a mafsada in there. Lakin the maslaha of obeying them is greater. Why? Because there'll be unity between the Muslims. There'll be no fawda, no corruption. There won't be no, the residents of that country, the people living in there won't become refugees. They won't be having to flee from their country and so on. Like what we see now. The next principle, which is the 13th line, فإن تزاحم عدد المصالح يقدم الأعلى من المصالح. طيب. In this qa'idah, the Shaykh says, if we have two benefits or two ibadat or two maslahas, if they clash, then the greater one takes precedence. مثلا الآن we have, or the evidence for this principle, واتبعوا أحسن ما أنزل إليكم من ربكم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, follow the best of that which has been revealed to you. Also in the hadith, الإيمان بدع والسبعون شعبة فأعلاها لا إله إلا الله وأدناها إمادة الأذى عن الطريق. Iman has 70 odd or 60 odd branches. The highest of them is La ilaha illallah, and the lowest of them is removing something harmful from the path. So it's always, or in the Sharia, you will always find that we are commanded to do that which is most high, most upright. إن هذا القرآن يهدي للتي هي أقوم. Verily the Quran guides to that which is most upright, the most correct way. Not the correct way, like in the most upright way. An example of this is if there's a wajib and a sunnah, you perform which one? Al-wajib. طيب. Bear in mind the Shaykh says فإن تزاحم عدد المصالح, meaning that you can only perform one. It's impossible for you to combine both. مثلا الآن, if salah is, or if you walk into the masjid and there's 10 minutes left till Salatul Fajr, till the Jama'ah, there's 10 minutes left, and you enter the masjid, you've got enough time to what? Pray the Ratibatul Fajr, sit down, and then pray the prayer with, or the Jama'ah with the Imam, صح? You've prayed the Ratiba and you prayed the Fajr Jama'ah. طيب. How about if you come into the masjid during the Iqamah? Are you able to pray Ratibatul Fajr and the Jama'ah at the same time? لا. So in that case we've got a clash between a wajib, the Fajr Jama'ah, and a sunnah, which is Ratibatul Fajr. نقدم الأعلى. We give precedence to what? صحيح. مثلا الآن you want to pay sadaqah. However, you also want to repay a debt. You've borrowed a certain amount of money from someone and you want to return the amount to them. مثلا £1,000. You've borrowed £1,000 from a certain individual. But then as you're coming out of the masjid, you see someone asking for sadaqah. الآن there are two masalih: paying back the debt that you owe, or paying sadaqah to this individual. Which one takes precedence? The dayn. لماذا? It is wajib عليك. So there's a wajib and a طيب. Likewise, if two sunnahs meet and you're not able to perform both, then it's important to do the one which has the highest reward. That also can go back to the timing that you're in. مثلا الآن you're in the Kaaba. طيب. You can either perform tawaf around the Kaaba or read Quran or pray nawafil. Which one would you say? So we have عدد مصالح, يعني we have a number of masalih. A question to the sisters, which one do we give precedence to? We have salah, nawafil, we have reading the Quran of Allah Jalla wa Ala, we have tawaf around the Kaaba. Why is that? أحسنتي. طيب. The sister said, or the sisters said, perform tawaf. Do you agree? No. Why? Because you can read the Quran anywhere, and you can also pray Salatul Nawafil anywhere. Like when it comes to tawaf, you can only do tawaf around the Kaaba. So you give precedence to the ibadah that is present at that particular time, which is more virtuous at that time. طيب. وضده تزاحم المفاسد يرتكب الأدنى من المفاسد. And the opposite to that, وضده, the opposite to the qa'idah that we've just mentioned. What is the opposite to that? Without looking at the matan, what is the opposite to the qa'idah we just mentioned? When we have different masalih, نقدم الأعلى, the highest one, or the one with the most reward, takes precedence. What is the opposite to that? When two evils meet, what? Naam. And that's what is known as the lesser of the two evils. So if two harms clash, then two evils clash, and we have to fall into one of those, then the lesser of the two evils is to be carried out. And the evidence for that is the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, إِنَّمَا حَرَمَ عَلَيْكُمُ الْمَيْتَةَ وَالدَّمَ وَلَحْمَ الْخِنْزِيرِ وَمَا أُهِلَّ بِهِ لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ فَمَنِ اضْطُرَّ غَيْرَ بَاغٍ وَلَا عَادٍ فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ. In this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا حَرَمَ عَلَيْكُمُ الْمَيْتَةَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the mayta, the dead animals, have been made haram, with dam and blood, وَاللَّحْمَ الْخِنْزِيرِ, and the flesh of the swine. طيب. وَمَا أُهِلَّ بِهِ لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ, and that which has been slaughtered in other than, or by other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name. فَمَنِ اضْطُرَّ, the one that is forced, as for the one that is forced, غَيْرَ بَاغٍ وَلَا عَادٍ, whilst he is not transgressing, and whilst not overdoing the prohibition, or once he's satisfied, the one that goes over bounds, then فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ, فَلَا إِثْمَ عليه. طيب. فَمَنِ اضْطُرَّ غَيْرَ بَاغٍ, the one that is forced. In this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the mayta is haram, صح? طيب. Mayta is haram, dead animals. مثلا, you find an animal in water, drowned, or someone hit an animal without slaughtering it on the head and it fell on the ground. طيب. That is called a mayta, that is a dead animal. Lakin, if you happen to be in the middle of the desert and you have no means of survival, there's no food, no drink, nothing around, and you find a mayta, you're between two mafasid, two mafsadas. Either you eat the mayta, the dead animal, which is haram, which is a mayta, it's a mafsada, or you stay away from the mafsada and you die due to starvation, due to hunger. We have a mafsada and a mafsada. نقدم ماذا? Which one do we give precedence to? Eating. لماذا? Why is that? It is the lesser of the two evils. It is the lesser of the two evils. In the sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the hadith of the man that the Bedouin, the Arabi that urinated in the masjid of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We have in this hadith, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam implemented this qa'idah. He took the lesser of the two evils. A Bedouin came into the masjid of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he started to urinate in the masjid. The companions wanted to rush to him and prevent him from doing so. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, leave him alone, let him finish. And when the man finished, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam called for a bowl of water or a pan of water to be poured over the urine. طيب. In this hadith there's a mafsada. There's two mafsadas. The first mafsada is this individual is making the masjid filthy. The masjid will become dirty because he's urinated in the masjid. صح? طيب. And then we have a second mafsada, which is what? If the companions would have prevented him, the urine would have reached everywhere. Firstly. Secondly, he would have been forced to hold the urine back. So that would have harmed his health. Now, these mafasid, and the whole of the area, or the whole area that he was on, or the part of the masjid that he was on, the urine would have reached everywhere. It would have reached the companions, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this individual. طيب. And cleaning it would have been a struggle. طيب. The mafsada of him urinating in this masjid, and the mafsadas, or the mafasid that we mentioned, which one did the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam implement? The al-adna, the lower one, the lesser of these two mafasid, which was what? Let him finish. Once the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam allowed him to finish, then he ordered for it to be cleaned. So in this hadith we find that the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam implemented this qa'idah. طيب. Ibn Taymiyyah rahmatullahi alayhi, he was with one of his students, and I believe it was Ibn al-Qayyim. Ibn al-Qayyim. They came past the Tatar, and they were drunk on the floor. And the person that was with Shaykh al-Islam said to Shaykh al-Islam, why don't you prevent them from, and admonish them and warn them against drinking alcohol? Shaykh al-Islam said, leave them alone, for if they become sober, they're going to start killing the Muslims. Them being drunk in this state is a what? Maslaha or mafsada? Mafsada. Them killing the Muslims when they become sober is a maslaha wala mafsada? Mafsada. Al-an عندنا مفسدتان. We have two mafsadas. The mafsada of them drinking or the mafsada of killing the Muslims. Which one is greater? Killing the Muslims. Which one do we facilitate? The shurb al-khamr. Because if they do become sober, then they're going to start to kill the Muslims. طيب. مثلا الآن a Muslim woman has been taken hostage or has been held hostage in a far off land. طبعا the fact that she's there as a hostage يعني is haram, and there's a mafsada in there. Allahu A'lam what can happen to her. طيب. Her fleeing from that and travelling back to her land without a mahram, there's a mafsada in there, صح? Why? Because a mahram for a woman to travel is wajib, صح? It's wajib for her to have a mahram. It's haram for her to travel without a mahram. We have a mafsada of her remaining in the hands of the people who have taken her hostage. And then we have another mafsada of the possibility of her being able to flee and run away, lakin without a mahram. Which one takes precedence? Fleeing takes precedence. طيب. الآن you're in a situation where you're dying of starvation, and there's a mater and a pig in front of you, swine. The flesh of a swine. So you've got the possibility of eating this filthy animal or eating the mater. Mafsada, mafsada. Which one do you do? The mater. Le. La. Between these two mafasid. Pig is alive, so you can say Bismillah. Alive or dead? If he was alive, would you say Bismillah and cut him? Slaughter him? If he was a mater for Aslan. Both mater, both of them. The mater. لماذا؟ أحسنت Abdullah. The pig is haram Aslan. From its origin it's haram. Lakin the mater has been made haram. Aslan is halal, lakin it's haram because it is a mater. طيب. ومن قواعد الشريعة التيسير في كل أمر نابه تعسير. ومن قواعد الشريعة, and from the principles of the Sharia is ease, or bringing about ease. في كل أمر نابه تعسير, in every matter, in every issue that is difficult. This qaida is from the 5 major principles, and when the fuqaha talk about it, they say, it's called al-mashaqqatu tajlibu at-taysir, and you're very familiar with this principle. And the evidence for this is many. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the best of your ability. لَا يُكَلِّفُ اللَّهُ نَفْسًا إِلَّا وُسْعَهَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't burden a soul upon its ability. طيب. Also, on the hadith in which the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, صَلِّ قَائِمًا فَإِن لَمْ تَسْتَطِعْ فَقَاعِدًا فَإِن لَمْ تَسْتَطِعْ فَعَلَى الْجَنْبِ. So we see that there's a mashaqqa and difficulty. In this hadith, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned the asl, which was to pray standing up. فإن لم تستطع, if you're not able to pray standing up because of a mashaqqa, because of a difficulty, because of hardship, then صلي قائما, صلي قاعدا, then pray sitting down. طيب. ومن قواعد الشريعة, from the principles of the Sharia, التيسير, ease, or bringing about ease. في كل أمر, in every issue, نابه التعسير, that has difficulty, or in every difficult issue or matter. طيب. Bring some examples, or mention some examples of this principle. If you're ill, then you have to? You don't have to fast. Naam, if you're ill in the month of Ramadan, or well, you don't have to fast. When you're traveling, you can shorten your prayer. You can also, what? When you're traveling? Combine your salah. You can also wipe over your socks. What else? Tayammum. There are other issues related to this qa'idah, such as the reasons for at-taysir, asbab at-taysir, how taysir happens. Lakin, inshallah, we'll study that in the later dawahs. طيب. I've moved forward because the heat's too hot, the radiator. طيب. The last qawaa'id that we took, دفع المفاسد, جلب المصلحة, giving precedence to the greater maslaha, giving precedence to the lesser of the two evils. You can implement them in the Sharia, obviously, lakin you can also implement them in your lives, in your personal life. If ever you're faced with two issues which are both mafasid, and you can't avoid both, then do that which is the lesser of the two evils. Likewise, if you are faced with two benefits, طيب, lakin you can only do one of them, then it's better for you to do the higher ibadah, or the maslaha. Mathalan, for example, someone wants to perform umrah. A Muslim wants to perform umrah. They still need to perform hajj. So they need to perform hajj and umrah. So they're faced with both. They don't have the finances to do, or the finance to do both. So you have two masalih. What you can do is, when you weigh them, you can't do both. Financially, it's difficult for this specific individual. Like, what they can do is save up and go to hajj rather than perform an umrah on its own. Even though umrah is a maslahah, like in saving up that extra few thousand and going to hajj, you will be achieving or attaining umrah and more. Firstly, you'll be attaining umrah and more. Secondly, the hajj which is wajib, hajjatul Islam, you've performed hajjatul Islam, so that wajib is past you, and the obligation of it has passed since you've performed it. نعم, على كل, you can implement these qawaa'id in your personal lives. The Shaykh says, رحمة الله عليه رحمة واسعة, وليس واجب بلا اقتدار ولا محرم مع الضرار وكل محظور مع الضرورة بقدر ما تحتاجه ضرورة. طيب. The Shaykh says there is no obligation, وليس واجب, there is no obligation بلا اقتدار, without ability. وليس واجب بلا اقتدار. طيب. The qa'idah, we've gone through this qa'idah, we've studied this qa'idah in the past. لكن with different wording. لا واجب مع العجز. لا واجب مع العجز. The same as exactly what the Shaykh rahmatullahi alayhi has mentioned. وليس واجب بلا اقتدار. There is no ibadah, or there is no wajibness or obligatory, there is no obligation بلا اقتدار, يعني without the ability. And the evidence for that is the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala according to the best of your ability. طيب. Also, إذا أمرتكم بأمر فأتوا منه ما استطعتم. If I command you with if I give you a command, if I command you to do a certain act, then do as much of it as you can. As much of it as you can. For example, now the salah, we've been commanded to pray, sah? We've been commanded to pray standing up. Now if we're not able to pray standing up, we should pray sitting down. طيب. ولا محرم مع اضطرار. By the way, these qawaa'id that we're studying, especially the qawaa'id al-kubra, there are qawaa'id تندرج تحتها. There are other principles that come under each qa'idah. لكن they're not as comprehensive as the main qa'idah. So for example, al-yaqeen la yazulu bil-shak. We're going to study in a minute. There are qawaa'id that come underneath that. These qawaa'id, we'll study them in the later dawras, in the later, when we're studying the kitab the second time or the third time around. The main thing that we're concentrating on in this dawra is to understand the matn only. And the matn is the lines of poetry that you have in front of you. وَلَا مُحَرَّمٌ مَعَ الطِّرَارِ. And there is nothing which is haram, or there is no prohibition مَعَ الطِّرَارِ, in times of when there's a dire necessity. طيب. So darura is that which if a person leaves out, then they will be faced with extreme difficulty. An example, if a woman is or has an accident, a car accident, مثلا, goes to the hospital and they say we need to cut off the leg, or the bottom part of the leg, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. That requires what? Lifting up parts of the garment, parts of the clothing. صح? طيب. لا محرم مع الضرار. So there is no prohibition مع الضرار when there's a dire necessity. So we say you can lift up the garment, even though the male doctor will see parts of her body, lakin there's a need, there's a darura. طيب. طيب. So in the 16th line we have two qawaa'id. وَلَيْسَ وَاجِبٌ بِالْاقْتِدَارِ. لَا واجب مع العجز. That's the first qa'idah. The second part of the line, وَلَا مُحَرَّمٌ مع الضرار. And there is no prohibition with الضرورة. And who can say it's a necessity? And that goes back to Ahlul Ilm. Why? Because you will find some Muslims, مثلا, shaving off their beards because they need to, because they're going for an interview and they shave off their beards. And they say it's a darura. They say لا محرم معه or لا محرم مع الضرورة. Is that the correct implementation of this qa'idah? لا. Because if the person doesn't attend this interview, there is no harm that can affect him or his wealth or his life. صح؟ طيب. وكل محظور مع الضرورة, and every prohibition مع الضرورة in times of necessity, بقدر ما تحتاجه الضرورة. It is done according to the necessity. It is done according to the necessity. This is an offshoot from the other qa'idah, the one just before it. There is no prohibition when there's a dire necessity. Like in this qa'idah, it kind of restricts this qa'idah in the 17th line. Every prohibition can only be done according to its necessity, restricts the qa'idah before it. Mathalan, the example that we had of the woman going to the hospital, her leg must be uncovered, sah? Does that require for the top half of her body to be uncovered? No. So we can't say الضرورة تبيح المحظورات, and she takes off the clothing that she has, even though it's only the leg that is going through surgery. صح؟ طيب. And that is what the fuqaha mean when they say الضرورة تقدر بقدرها. الضرورة تقدر بقدرها. الضرورة تقدر بقدرها. The ضرورة, the need, is done, تقدر, is done according to بقدرها, to its level or to its extent. مثلا الآن, someone needs to eat a maita or khamar. Someone needs to drink khamar to stay alive, because they will be, or they shall die of thirst. If they do not find the khamar or drink the khamar, they are going to die of thirst. And tab'an, there's no water or there's no other soft drinks around. Khamar is the only sort of beverage that is around. Now, we say what? لا محرم مع اضطرار. So, there's no haram or there's no prohibition when there's a necessity. So it's permissible for this individual to what? To drink alcohol. طيب. Do we leave it like that and say it's permissible for yalla halal? لا. What do we say? تقدر بقدرها. Yes, you have a necessity, لكن تقدر, we measure it according to